Hello, good morning, and welcome to my talk. I'm CEO and founder of Syskun GmbH, and I will talk about how to do ambitious accounting on the German market this morning. Okay, we have a quite strong agenda, so it's only here for a short, quick view, and we will immediately start with account.moves differences between Odoo and German accounting software. As any one of you knows, I think in Odoo we have one line per account with debit, credit, and tax rate maybe. Account move, including a tax rate, requires a minimum of 3 lines. Second tax line is added automatically when using the net amount and the tax. And the third line also needs to be added manually if no invoice is created. In most of the German accounting software, mostly common DATEV with the German logic, you don't know these things. So we only have one line per account move, and we need to decide with debit and credit using the accounts. Also, taxes is not handled directly as in Odoo by choosing a tax rate. Instead, you need to use a 1 to 3 digits tax key added to the account where you want to have the taxes. And the other big difference is that you are usually use gross and not net amount. Pros and cons between Odoo and DATEV or other German software. Odoo is much easier to understand and to handle for non-accountants. In around 90% of all cases, I think Odoo creates automatically the account moves, and it also allows complex account moves without using a transit account. Contra is you need more clicks to do an account move, and it's difficult to get used for many experienced German accountants. DATEV, or the German logic, is most well for experienced German accountings, and they all know to handle it. And you only need one line for a complete account move. Contra, it's hard to understand and hard to handle for non-accountants. You have problems with complex account moves. They need a complex handling, and you need a transit account maybe to transfer amounts between different accounts. And you also have a really complex logic to handle taxes and currencies and currency rates. Conclusion on this is Odoo is much easier to handle for accountants, and knowledge transfer can be maybe a problem, and it's hard to teach and understand for experienced accountants in Germany. But with advantages of Odoo as fully integrated system, you can archive acceptance even on hardliner accountants. Requirements for export of financial postings is the next point. Most German accounting software can handle the DATEV ASCII CSV format. It's the most common format in Germany for exporting and importing account moves between different accounting softwares. But it's difficult to convert Odoo's account moves to required German software, as shown before, because of the different format you have. Account moves are often not enough, so during the years it's getting more and more required that you also need to transfer the PDFs or the invoices to the external software. Technical needs and obstacles for the DATEV ASCII export. So you have 2 lines plus per move in Odoo, and you need to define or identify the opposite account. And you must recompute amount to gross because of the tax automation the German accounting software is often using. There's quite a way to do net amount export, but it's not common and it's not or only accepted in a few times by the accounting company. You must group the Odoo move lines since each related move line or invoice line is separate, and therefore you need to group that from 10 lines to 1, for example, or for two move lines that have equal accounts, equal taxes, and so on. And also in German, it's well common that you have own debitors and creditor accounts, which is not necessary by Odoo. And therefore you need own account numbers for those, which means you need to do a second export if you want to have the complete contact data in the external software that contains the address and the account number and so on. And also, if you need PDFs, you need to generate a zip file in Odoo. And the zip file needs to reference all the invoices to match the account moves which you have exported by CSV, for example, to bring them together in the accounting software. So these are only some aspects since the DATEV ASCII file has 170 or maybe more columns where you can put in information and that you need to handle. Pros and cons. With an export, like described before, you have the flexibility to use other accounting software in Germany. It's often accepted by hardliner accountants, and it's also good for smaller companies with external accounting. Cons, it's a complex implementation and you need a lot of things to consider. Support is needed at the beginning for client, customer, and tax offices. And there are sometimes, but not that often, changes in the CSV ASCII format. So there is also a maintenance or an update of the modules necessary. And if no bank reconciliation is done, you need to take care on another way that you can handle payments or paid invoices in Odoo, because otherwise they will stay open. Conclusion is, with export, you have more flexibility to use accounting software of client choice. Exporting and importing financial postings do need a lot of knowledge. You need extra workflows. And Odoo as a standalone accounting software is much easier to handle as something combined with an export. And you also need to take care that you are GoBD compliant, which is not available and certified in the Odoo standard. Electronic export of VAT. So it's the Elster Connection here. It's not mandatory by the German law, and VAT forms are changing every year, and often they are not up to date in Odoo. But it's possible to send the informations manually via elster.de to the authorities. Other thing is, an Elster connection is really common standard in every accounting software in Germany. And German accountants, so it's mostly one of the first things they are asking, can we do an Elster export? And they want to have it. So there is only one way to fulfill the requirement. In the background of the Elster export, there is an Elster Rich client, which connects to the authorities, and you can send the VAT forms like Umsatzsteuervoranmeldung and ZM, the easy sales list via Elster, and this is also the minimum requirement. To the ERIC client, it provides a C library with interface specifications, and it's provided for free by the tax administration for implementing in your own tax or financial or payroll software. It plausibilizes the tax data and transmits encrypted form through secure connections to the tax administrator's acceptance servers. It's not visible to the user, so it's completely in the background, and development and provision of user-friendly interface is the task of the one who is controlling the software application. Ways to implement Elster Connection. So you have two ways. One is directly through the customer's Odoo instance to the authorities data center. And the second is through a server client construction where the server is receiving, processing, and forwarding the customer data to the authorities data center. Difficulties. ERIC client is updated by the authorities 3 to 4 times a year. That means you get 3 to 4 times a new version which you have to implement. And there is also a minimum version of that ERIC module. So that means if the software is not kept up to date, the transmission of data will be rejected after 1 year latest. Pros and cons. For the direct connection, pro is you have a direct way to the authority servers, and there is no need to develop a second connection instance which handles the data. Big contra is you need to be up to date at every client's Odoo 3 to 4 times a year, plus you need to update if there are changes in the web form. Connection through a server, client server. So the updates are centralized and it's only necessary one time for the complete server. Client Odoos don't need to be updated. So you only have to update them once per year. So if the new tax forms are out for 22, 23 and so on. But the contra is you need to connect to the client to the server by API. Conclusion is report via client server system is the only way to keep updates at the minimum. Connections via Elster allows further applications like E-Bilanz, AZV-Meldung and others. Accountant will be happy not having to send web form and easy sales list manually through Elster.de. And Odoo is made more complete to use in Germany and to get accepted as accounting software. Point 4, achieving GoBD. For GoBD compliance, accounting has to be comprehensive and verifiable, recorded clearly and consecutively, complete, correct, entered in company's books on time, sorted and unchangeable. Steps necessary for certification. You need to do the development to make Odoo compliant. Then you have to do the audit with the certified auditor, which takes approximately 2 to 3 months. And comes with a huge cost of a mid-sized 5 digits amount. And the third thing is if you have achieved the audit, you will receive an attest from the certificator. The authorities' view on the GoBD is on a letter of the Bundesfinanzministerium der Finanzen from 2019. And it says, positive accreditation on the correctness of bookkeeping and thus on the correctness of IT-based bookkeeping systems are not issued either in the course of a tax audit or in the course of a binding information. So that means the authorities will not audit your accounting software. And also certificates or attestations issued by third parties can be helpful when selecting a software product, but they do not have any binding effect on the tax authorities. So these informations are really clear, and but pros and cons, you have to, the certification is not necessary, binding for the authorities. The certification guarantees compliance, so it's a little bit opposite, but I think it's okay. It's not necessary for small companies, but it's necessary for medium and large companies. And without a certificate, you need to demonstrate that the requirements are met. Getting a certificate takes a lot of time, and in most cases it's too expensive for single companies. The conclusion is authorities do not issue nor recognize the GoBD certificates, but it guarantees compliance, which must be ensured by every company. And company which isn't a small corporation defined by German law is an amount of 20 million minimum as balance sheet total, amount of 40 million euro in the past 12 months in sales prior to closing date, or an annual average of 250 employees. So that means if the company is having one of the requirements, it has to be audited by a certified public auditor. And the auditor needs to check the software, and he is asking then normally by such a certificate which is bind to IDW PS 880, which is the requirements for getting a positive test date or a certificate. 5, E-Bilanz. Anyone who is required to prepare a balance sheet must transmit it electronically to the tax authorities. It depends on a specialized XML format with its own taxonomy, and it's a really huge taxonomy with a lot of points. It includes balance sheet and profit and loss, and also you need to attach a fixed asset report. It's also mandatory, and the transmission, the only way to transmit is also via Elster. Conclusion of this is the transmission needs Elster basis. You have the complex taxonomy where you need to match every single account you have used during your bookkeeping. And there is no free-to-use software available on the market. So you only will have paid software, and therefore you have to go through a complex manual process to archive your requirements here. So E-Bilanz is necessary for anyone, and it's a must-have for Odoo, in my opinion, to be Odoo as a full and easy-to-use accounting software. Okay, that's it. If you have questions, feel free to ask.
Thank you for the presentation. Do someone have a question?
Yeah, I have several questions. So maybe one for the GoBD, because I also had a look at the different points that we need to comply, and I didn't really see a need of this certification, because from what I read, we can handle all the points. So I don't know what your point is, and what are the points that we are missing in standard.
Yeah, so basically you are right. There is no need, but as I told in my talk, you have the requirements of the HBC, which says if you have over 20 million balance sheet and or over 40 million sales income or over 250 employees, it's a must-have, because you need to comply or to to have your bookkeeping tested or certified by an auditor, and the auditor needs this requirement. So it's never a thing that tax authorities want to have or need, but it's in Germany by the Handelsrecht defined, and so you need this for bigger companies. It's a real must-have.
I mean, for most of the Odoo customers, SME companies, it's not really required for now, but I understand that for bigger companies and the growing MMC market, that would be something that would be required.
So if you want bigger customers, and if you want to go in the market of mid-size and large companies, and you want to use Odoo accounting, it's required. But for small companies, you're right.
Thank you for the presentation, Matthias. May I ask a question? How many of your German clients are not using DATEV?
Can you repeat?
Do you have clients in Germany that are using only Odoo without the connection to DATEV?
Yes, we have. Yes.
Also bigger companies, or?
Yes, mostly bigger companies, and but also some small companies who have the knowledge for accounting within the company.
One thing I'm not 100% sure about is the document management system. So I know that any invoice, incoming invoice, external invoice must be stored, like revisioned and everything. And as far as I see, the documents app by Odoo is not really doing the job for this as other document management systems are doing this. What do you think about this? Is this an issue, or?
Yes, for the certificate, it's an issue. So we have done the certification for our module, and with our GoBD module, you are reaching that requirements, and we have logged all attachments on account.moves that are booked. So we also have a state where you cannot change the account.moves, and also attach documents, not only PDF, so it doesn't matter what kind of document you have is logged, and it's impossible to delete, but you can attach further documents as much as you want.
So if I'm not complying to this, I don't need to be audited, or the numbers you said with 20 million, is it still good enough if I get like a tax audit and not to have any printed invoice, or not to have invoice on any document management system?
So normally it should be enough, but maybe the tax auditor asks or want to see how you manage that. And so I think, so I had several companies in the past who had, for example, an Umsatzsteuerprüfung, or also a normal audit by the authorities, and with an export they can work on, and also by showing the auditors how everything is handled, so it was accepted.
Okay.
Hi, Matthias. First of all, thank you for the presentation. I had a discussion yesterday with Odoo, and they said they are going for working with GoBD, but based on your presentation, it will not be really something helpful for big or medium companies, because the authorization is not, the authority in Germany, they don't certify GoBD. So for your customers, your big customers, what they do in this case is everyone is going for an auditor from Germany, or you as an integrator, you deal with an auditor and you give the certification to your customers?
With our module, we have audited. So when you integrate that into your customer's Odoo, you will receive the certificate we have.
And okay, so for other integrators, they need also to have the same thing to go with an auditor, or is something that, for example, if I go to an auditor and they already dealt with Odoo, can I get the certificate from them, or everyone needs to pay for?
Yes.
For the
Yes. So if you say so, there are not many auditors in Germany who can do this. So normally they are specialized on certification. And the thing is, if you don't have such a certificate, it's possible that your auditor that is yearly checking your balance sheet gives his okay, but he has to do more checks, and it's getting more expensive without certificate. But this is a thing that are also less auditor accepting. So, for example, 2 months ago we had a bigger client, and the tax auditor said we will not accept Odoo because it's not audited, and they didn't care of our certificate. So they said we don't talk about that, and the customer already has he has spent nearly 100,000 euro on the Odoo project, and because of the auditor, they need to put it down.
Just last question. Since you know this field very well, do you think that if Odoo gets certified with an auditor, like that the German authority trust, do you think that it will help all the companies in Germany with this certification, or each one needs an audit because everyone can add something in his accounting, which means that what the auditor audit with the Odoo, the big company, it doesn't mean that it's the same audit with each customer.
Yes, so that's correct. So if you do some customizations in the accounting, you need to document it well, because if you do an audit under Odoo standard, the certificate is only valid for the standard. But it shouldn't be a problem to do some customizations if it's documented well, and if it is described what you have done and where are the impacts.